I think that some of the more important strategies around climate adaptation and mitigating the impacts of climate change have to do with investment in people, investment in communities. So for example, today we're here in Bogota, this beautiful city, but is unfortunately, like many other large global cities, is marked by social and spatial disparity and inequality. So we have communities that experience a lack of access to adequate housing and build their own homes in large and informal settlements where they're at higher levels of risk. We could address that solution, we could create a solution that addresses that problem by simply building housing, large towers in the center of the city away from the risk areas. But I would argue that that's not sufficient because ultimately what these communities are experiencing is the inability to control their own mobility within the city, to control their own ability to select where they would like to live. So perhaps another strategy is to invest in subsidies, to invest in economic opportunity that then places the ability for these communities to choose where they will live, to choose how they will live. I think this kind of approach where we're thinking about instruments and strategies that really try to empower communities and people to make their own decisions, I think is really one of the first steps to addressing climate change. And that moves us away from the kind of physical determinism that a lot of climate adaptation is dominated by it today. Often when we think of climate adaptation, we think about physical infrastructure like retaining walls, like sea walls to deal with flooding, or other forms of physical infrastructure. But I would argue that that's insufficient. That again, we have to begin by looking at what are the tools and strategies that we have available to us that empower communities to decide where they will locate, where they will live, and where they can build adequate and safe housing in a changing environment.